The Cherokees.
A thriving American Indian tribe.
Our history.
Our culture.
Our people.
Our future.
The principles of a historic nation.
Sewn into the fabric of a modern world.
Hundreds of thousands strong.
Learning. Growing.
Succeeding.
And steadfast.
In the past, we have persevered through struggle.
But the future is ours to write.
Osiyo.
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 These are the voices of the Cherokee people.
Osiyo, I'm Principal Chief Bill John Baker. Welcome to the Cherokee Nation. This is how we share our culture, our heritage, our history, and our language with you. Wado.
Osiyo, it's how we say hello in Cherokee. In this episode, we're paying tribute to the men and women of the Cherokee Nation who have served in our military and on the home front. From World War I to the War on Terror, these are the stories of Cherokees who have sacrificed for our country. First up, Echo Garvin Ryder, a school teacher from Sequoyah County, Oklahoma, who became a Rosie the Riveter during World War II, painting airplanes and ships for combat. American Indians serve in the military at a higher rate than any other ethnic group, and World War II was no exception. While some 45,000 Indians enlisted in the armed forces, another estimated 65,000 served on the home front. They worked in the wartime defense industry. Women throughout the country were heavily recruited to join the home front effort, with the now iconic Rosie the Riveter and her We Can Do It campaign leading the cause. Women left their homes to go work in factories and shipyards, constructing, welding, riveting, and painting aircraft and boats. Cherokee Nation citizen Echo Ryder was one of these real-life Rosies who left her job as a teacher in Sequoyah County, Oklahoma to serve her country in an aircraft manufacturing plant and later in California shipyards.
I was teaching school at Russia and declared the war. I resigned my teaching position to Wichita to work in the factory up there at Bowie. Was a recruiter up there, getting people to work for the war. So that's when I signed up to go. I went to Boeing Aircraft and worked there as a painter. I painted the stars on the wings of the airplane. We had a pattern, a tin plate, spray painted. That's where I learned to spray paint. We worked 8 hours. I usually worked a swing shift, which began about 2 o'clock, lasted 8 hours. In the paint department, there were several women, but no spray painters. I was the only woman spray painter. Well, while I was at Wichita, my brother, Emmett, was in California. So I went out there and he was working at Moore Dry Dock. I went there and applied for work and got hired as a painter. And we worked there, and later on we looked for housing. So I bought a house for $150 down and $50 a month, a brand new house. And my brother and his family, and my mom and my sister was out there. They came out there. And that's where we lived until I transferred over to Richmond. They call it Kaiser Shipyard. I worked there until the war was over. Back then, everybody sacrificed. We all worked, prayed, cried, laughed, asked about our neighbors, the ones that was overseas in different places fighting for us at that time. We just had a job that we wanted to do, had to do, to win the war. We just all helped each other. We was concerned about our other friends and loved ones and neighbors, everyone. We cared for each other. And the victory in Japan was over. Everything closed except the emergency rooms. People went in the street, in their cars, on foot. Everybody was shouting and hugging and kissing and all. Everything shut down, all the work. That was BJ Day. After the war was over, I came back and I went to Southsaw, the unemployment office. Said, well, you can teach school. I was a principal at 2 rural schools. Now, then I taught the rest of the year I taught at Roland, I taught at Sallisaw. This is my father's original allotment. I was born and raised here. When I married my husband after the war, we came back here and lived. We had cattle all the time. I've always had cattle ever since I've been born. We started a cow herd, and then we got into the horse breeding and horse racing. I used to run the barrel races, and we would go on trail rides. I never did go on very many long trail rides, but we would. And my husband and I just rode our horses together lots here. He was riding still at 89 years old. My husband and I helped start Blue Ribbon Downs at Sallisaw, first pari-mutuel racetrack in Oklahoma. We'd have match races and side betting. At the beginning, all of our pay was, he'd take us to the cafe and eat. We was all volunteers.
After 40 years of teaching school and helping to build up the town of Sallisaw, Echo remains a pillar in the Miller Ridge community. At 97, she is still living and ranching on her father's original Cherokee allotment, where she was born and raised. There are more than 4,000 Cherokee Nation citizens who are military veterans. Each year, Cherokee Nation sends a group of those veterans to Washington, D.C. to visit the national monuments and memorials erected in honor of their service.
When they contacted me about this particular flight, I told them, I said, well, you know, I'd love to go.
This trip is something I've looked forward to for a while. It means a lot to me.
My name is Charles Scott, and I was in World War II.
W.C. Chamberlain. I was in World War II.
Served in the Navy in 1944 to 1946. I was in the Philippines on a cargo ship. After they dropped the bombs, of course, the war was over, and they told us to unload everything there on the docks and come home.
I was in the Navy for 4 years, and in World War II from 1942 until 1946. I grew up a lot, you know, as most young kids do that join the service like that when they're young.
I had a dad, he was World War I veteran, and he had 7 boys, and every one of those boys went to the military. 4 in World War II and 3 in Korea, and 4 brothers are on this trip. I think that's quite a tribute to my dad. I'm proud to be a veteran.
We have some very special customers on board this aircraft today. We have some veterans from the Korean War and World War II, and we would like to honor them today if we could by letting them board first. And thank you very much for your service to our country.
I was in the Army Air Force. That was before there was ever a regular Air Force. I was in France 21 days after D-Day. There was a patrol of 5 of us that was sent to the center of Paris. They told us to see if they fired at us. I thought, well, that seems to be an indication of how much expendable we are. It's probably a 2-mile walk, and that was the most eerie thing that I ever went through. But we took pictures of the Arc de Triomphe there, and I think I got the names of all 5 in that patrol. I just can't imagine a society putting up with what Hitler managed to accomplish. It had to happen. Everybody had to pull in unison to take care of the situation. I can't tell you what it felt like. We knew that everybody was going.
The new World War II memorial is something that you'll never forget.
I thought that it would be just a good thing to do, to come back and see the memorials and see the shipmates' names that was on the memorial that had lost their lives.
This trip, it means a lot to me. There was 4 of us went and 2 came back. My older brother and I were the ones that came back. My younger brother was, the last time I saw him, he was in high school. Shot down over Linz, Austria, and I had a letter from my older brother that there were no parachutes, and he went up and took care of his belongings. I will be looking.
It's just a lot of history, and I enjoy seeing this history.
I think it's very important to memorialize those military incidents.
My only son was killed in Vietnam. He got killed in 1972. My son's name is Edward Burnett.
Right up this side.
He's on that memorial, you know.
All of those memorials like that, I think is very important. It's history. I mean, we can't ignore our history. If the young kids have an opportunity to go view them, to visit them. I don't know how many families nowadays take their children to those types of things, but I would hope that they do. And these types of memorials are things that keep that alive.
The Army Special Forces unit known as Delta Force is an elite counterterrorism unit. In this story, we celebrate the life of Delta Force Master Sergeant Joshua Wheeler, who was the first American killed in combat with ISIS. Cherokee Nation citizen Joshua Wheeler grew up in Muldrow, Oklahoma, the eldest of 5 siblings. He went on to join the Army, became an Army Ranger, was a veteran of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and a member of the Army's secretive counterterrorism unit, Delta Force. On October 22, 2015, Delta Force carried out a raid on a militant-run prison in Iraq. The raid freed 70 prisoners who officials say would have been executed the next day. Wheeler was killed by small arms fire.
We now know the identity of the American soldier killed in Iraq this week, the first to fall in battle there in 4 years and the first ever to be killed in direct combat with ISIS.
Joshua Wheeler, the elite Delta Force Master Sergeant, sacrificed his life to save others. A leader in the war on terror, Wheeler was also a leader on the home front. The husband, father, and son from Roland, Oklahoma was known for being especially giving and for putting others' needs before his own. During his 20 years in the Army, Wheeler was deployed at least 17 times and was the recipient of 11 Bronze Stars, 4 of them for valor. Posthumously, the U.S. Armed Forces awarded him with the Purple Heart and the Silver Star, and the Cherokee Nation awarded him with the Medal of Patriotism. Sergeant Wheeler's family says he was always proud of his Cherokee heritage. The medal was presented to his grandparents and brother Zach in July of 2016. After serving as a paratrooper in the Army National Guard, John W. Thompson turned his lifelong love of water into a rehabilitation program called Soldiers Undertaking Disabled Scuba.
You know, back on the battlefield, they had all those booms and explosions going off. Now you're underwater and you don't hear anything except for the bubbles coming out of your regulator or maybe the reef crackling. Just very tranquil environment. My name is John Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of SUDS, and SUDS is Soldiers Undertaking Disabled Scuba. This is a nonprofit program based out of Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Rincon, Puerto Rico is kind of our home base, the surf capital of the Caribbean, so it's just got a great vibe. So I spend the majority of my year here. I have a huge support system in this community. They really roll out the red carpet when I bring warriors down here. I was born in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and I grew up in Sallisaw, Oklahoma, which is in Sequoyah County. Just grew up hunting and fishing and in the outdoors. It's a really cool place to grow up. We always had a small cabin up on 10 Killer, and we would spend our whole summers up there. So I've always been around the water, always been on the water, love the water. I am a member of the Cherokee Nation. I'm very proud of it. It's a very important part of my life. I spent 7 years in the Army National Guard in an airborne unit. I was a paratrooper, and I worked as a guide and instructor running extended expeditions in the Rocky Mountains. So I'd spend my winters down here in the Caribbean diving, and then I'd spend my summers in the Rocky Mountains. Back in 2005, I went to the Army Hospital at Walter Reed, and it was the height of the war, and I walked in. As soon as I walked in, I saw these very young men and women with some pretty horrific injuries, and I knew at that moment that I wanted to get involved. I'm a dive instructor. Here's all these injured men and women. I'm curious, or I wonder if we could use scuba diving to help facilitate their rehabilitation. So I met with the chief physical therapist at Walter Reed. She saw the merit in what I wanted to do, and she gave me the green light.
Yeah, what you got?
I like the split ones. You
Yeah,
want to check mine out?
Oh, I've seen those.
But typically, we'll have 6 to 8 warriors on a trip, and normally 3 or 4 dive staff. We like to have a ratio of 1 instructor or dive master to 2 warriors.
My name is Brian Boone. I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2011 as an EOD tech, which is explosive ordnance disposal. We take care of IEDs.
My name is Christopher Cowan. I was a corporal in the United States Marine Corps, and I just recently retired. It's definitely a humbling experience. You know, it just shows you like how quick, you know, things can happen in life and how quickly things can turn around. I don't really take things for granted anymore.
In November of 2011, I happened to be with a group of engineers that were doing route clearance packages, and we had taken care of a couple of IEDs, and we're heading back to the FOB, and it was just wrong place, you know, wrong time. Our vehicle got hit, my leg got smashed, and life changed at that point, you know? It's kind of like everything you've been doing for your military career. It's like the rug just gets pulled right out from underneath you, and life begins again, you know?
No. Just relax and breathe normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
John's just one of the most sincere, genuine guys I've met in a long time. The hospitality to open his doors for us to come down here and to teach us scuba is phenomenal.
They jokingly call a single below the knee amputees paper cuts. I can do everything I could before. I just have to put on a leg before I do it. When you have other guys, they don't have that luxury. So no, honestly, I don't feel sorry for myself. Like it could be a lot worse.
You're rehabbing with guys that are double and triples, and you see the anguish and the pain that they're going through as they're rehabbing, and you know, again, just being a below knee it's almost a blessing in disguise. But at the same time, everybody has their own injuries. You really can't compare yourself to, you know, I carried around a lot of guilt for a long time, thinking that, you know, I don't know, it's just hard. It's just hard watching those guys really struggle, and you know they're gonna have serious problems for the rest of their life. And you come home and things just seem different. So to be able to escape and to get into an underwater world like that is just It really is. It's another world. It's awesome.
We often hear that when these men and women are in the water and underwater, that the pain goes away. Once they've gotten injured or gotten out of the military, they've lost that camaraderie that they had while they're in the military. So we're providing that experience for them when they come on these trips with us. With SUDS in this program, it's not all about diving. I think it's kind of a springboard or a catalyst to help them heal, and I'm happy that I can share my passion for the ocean and mountains with our service members who sacrifice so much. So we, as an American nation, need to give back to our service members who have made that sacrifice. It's the right thing to do.
He's the highest-ranking Native American to ever serve in the United States Navy, an early innovator of naval aviation and a veteran of 3 wars. Here's the story of Admiral Jocko Clark.
Joseph James Jocko Clark was an admiral in the U.S. Navy, and he had a storybook career, honestly. He is the epitome of the U.S. sailor, the epitome of the Cherokee warrior.
And being who he was, just his leadership and his determination, that got him the title Patton of the Pacific. He influenced a whole cadre of naval aviators and naval officers, and that effect is still felt today.
Admiral Clark was born in Chelsea, Indian Territory. Just like most Cherokees at the time, they're just standard farming family.
Well, he was born in 1893. He was the oldest of 10 children. Being the oldest, he was put into a leadership position quite young. But that ability to lead gave him an edge.
He would later on go to the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis and be the first indigenous person to actually graduate from the U.S. Naval Academy. Well, during World War I, Admiral Clark served on the USS North Carolina, which was one of those airborne ships at the time. It's at that point in time in the Atlantic and seeing these seaborne planes being catapulted off these ships that he really took the turn and wanted to go to naval aviation. He had this fascination with it, and you've got to admire a guy who will get into a field that just started and it's not fully vetted, and be willing to have the intestinal fortitude to sit in that cockpit and fly a plane that might end up crashing on you.
And so he was able to secure a position in flight school in 1924, and by 1925 he became a naval aviator. Now, in the 30s, he was the only aviator on the Inspection and Survey Board, which would test out new aircraft and new ships. He was able to essentially tweak the design of aircraft and ships.
And a lot of the items that he instituted, not only on his vessels, but also in his theories as well, were actually implemented as a whole in the U.S. Navy.
Will Rogers was invited on board the USS Pennsylvania, and Jocko was assigned to take him up in an aircraft and essentially catapult him off the Pennsylvania. I can only imagine the pressure that Jocko was under to ensure that they would both come back safely from this little pony show.
Admiral Clark relates that, he and Will Rogers had, spoke over the years because they were great friends. When World War II first broke out, he became captain of his first ship, the Swanee, and afterwards he was repositioned to the Pacific Theater. It was really at this time that the thought of the aircraft carrier and all the theories that they had really hit home, that if we're going to take the fight to them, we need these mobile platforms to be able to launch bombing raids. They really stopped the Japanese in their place, and then Jocko would become the captain of the USS Yorktown, the fightingest lady of the U.S. Navy.
He took the Yorktown out, and he spearheaded the occupation of the Central and the Western Pacific Islands.
His main fixation was the Bonins, Chichijima, Iwo Jima, and Hahajima.
Without those strategic supply depots, it couldn't have been done.
He attacked that area more than any other area in the Pacific Theater, so much so that they actually called it the Jocko Jima Development Corporation, And his pilots actually made these little certificates that was worth 1 share in the Jocko Development Corporation. And every pilot who made a bombing run on the Bonans was given one.
He was aggressive, and he was a demanding leader. He was extremely intimidating.
We'll never be ready for combat unless you flight deck crews learn right now to work as a team. Don't you men realize that before long we'll be in dangerous waters? Get it over to starboard! Way over to starboard!
He ran a tight ship. You know, he expected the best out of his sailors, but he was always quick to praise.
The thing that he did to mitigate the negative effects that could come from being a very strong personality on the bridge was that he took care of his people.
He had pilots who said, you know, we'd follow you into hell. I mean, they trusted him. I mean, he was the quintessential captain.
The military commanders that came out of the Greatest Generation certainly were of a different breed than our military commanders today. I don't think they reached the same level of celebrity as Jocko or Patton did. The press was all over promoting their successes in both Europe and the Pacific.
He later on would move over and be on the USS Hornet as well when he became an admiral, and was in charge of his own task force. And his men over there loved him just the same. And then the North Koreans invaded the South, and he went over and was put in charge of the 7th Fleet during the Korean War.
He partnered with the Army in providing carrier-based close air support of ground troops in Korea. And he was able to change how the Army and the Navy worked together.
He began doing bombing runs from the aircraft carriers behind the bombing line, and was hitting the supply trucks and supply lines and the base camps for the North Koreans and Red Chinese. These runs actually affectionately became known as the Cherokee strikes. And that's where the Air Force saw the value of naval aviation.
Being able to attack the enemy in advance of moving ground troops, that was definitely key to getting us to a position where there would be the ceasefire of '53.
He would end up retiring after the Korean War. He was able to retire as a full 4-star admiral. The highest distinction he was given was the Navy Cross. And a lot of the strategy and theories that he implemented during World War II and the Korean War, a lot of those became the standard.
Well, there's only 2 Cherokee naval aviators that I'm aware of. That's myself and Jocko. There's a bond there.
You know, he had such an impact not only on the Navy, but also on our people. It makes you proud to be Cherokee.
The Cherokee Nation salutes all of our troops and honors all of our veterans. Thank you for all that you do. There is no Cherokee word for goodbye. We say, Dodadago ha'i. We'll see each other again. So until next time, wado.